The envelope sat on my marble kitchen counter, practically screaming in gold-embossed gilt. Annual Callahan Family Retreat, RSVP, by May 10th. I stood there, barefoot in my 2-story penthouse overlooking downtown Chicago, staring at the invitation like it was a threat, because in a way it was. 15 years of pretending, of playing the role, of being the family's disappointment, all about to implode, and not even by my own doing. It started 3 days ago with a single email. Subject line, Forbes 30 under 40. Meet the woman who quietly built a $4.9 tech art empire below it. My name. My real name? Tessa Callahan? Yep, that's me. I didn't even have time to panic before the headline started snowballing. CNBC Wired. Even freaking Vogue. And now my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Again. Miss Callahan. My assistant's voice piped through the intercom, cool and clipped as ever. Your brother Leo is on line 1. Again, of course he was. Leo had been calling non-stop since the press release hit the wires. Our family group chat was in meltdown mode, and I'd been playing Ghost for the past 24 hours. I sighed, slid my phone off the charger, and answered with a flat, "Hey, Tessa, what the actual hell?" Leo didn't even say hi. Business Weekly just called me asking for a quote about my mysterious billionaire sister. Do you want to explain that? I stared out at the skyline, watching the sun bounce off the glass towers. You'll get all the details in the article, just like everyone else. Cut the crap, Tess. You let us believe you were living paycheck to paycheck. You made Mom cry at Christmas when she offered to pay your rent. Why didn't you tell us? I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so damn absurd. Tell you what, that I was doing fine? That I wasn't some starving artist in Brooklyn like you all assumed? You literally drove a Corolla with a missing hubcap until last year. It was a choice, Leo. There was a beat of silence. Then, how long? I walked over to the massive floor-to-ceiling windows and pressed my palm to the glass. Since the studio apartment. Since I left Wall Street. That was 15 years ago. Exactly. Leo exhaled like I'd just punched him in the chest. But, Mom and Dad gave you money for groceries back then. I almost choked on my coffee. No, Leo. I asked them to invest. They declined, loudly. Told me NFTs were a scam and digital art was just Photoshop for lazy millennials. I didn't need their money. I wanted them to believe in me. They didn't. I could hear the gears turning in his head. You made how much? He asked, his voice quieter. The Forbes piece says $4.9 billion. Conservative estimate. Silence. Anyway, I said, grabbing my laptop, I have a quarterly review in 20. I'll see you at the retreat. You're actually coming? Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world. I hung up before he could reply and buzzed my assistant again. Rachel, is the yacht prepped for the family transport? Yes, Miss Callahan. Staff's briefed, non-disclosure agreements are signed, and the island is secured. Perfect. I picked up the invitation and chuckled. For over a decade, I played the part of the black sheep, the artistic failure, the family's charity case. But not this year. This year, I was bringing the truth. I still remember the night everything changed. I was 23, sitting in my parents' dining room, while my father read the list of MBA programs I should apply to before I ruined my future permanently. He didn't ask. He instructed. Meanwhile, my little sister Mia was passing around photos of her new Lexus, and Leo was bragging about his hedge fund bonus. And me? I'd just sold my first NFT collection for $60,000. But I said nothing. Tess, my dad barked. This digital junk you're doing? It's not a real career, it's a phase. My mom jumped in. You need something stable, honey. A nice consulting job. Just for a few years. I stared at them, all three. Their condescending smiles, the way Leo smirked at my silence. And I made my decision. Maybe you're right, I said. 2 weeks later, I moved into a one-bedroom studio in Queens. Cheap, cramped, mismatched furniture from Craigslist. To them, I'd finally hit rock bottom. But in reality, I was just getting started. The first year was brutal. I lived on protein bars and black coffee, worked 18-hour days, designed, coded, sold, networked, learned blockchain tech from scratch. My first major digital art launch, a collection called Mythos, sold out in 7 minutes. $1.3 million. That money? I didn't blow it. I reinvested, built a platform for other artists, partnered with startups in Singapore, acquired 3 failing NFT hubs, and flipped them within a year. By year 2, I was worth $12 million. By year 5, over $300 million. But every Thanksgiving, I showed up in thrift jeans, drove my clunky Corolla, let Mia pay for the turkey. My family believed I was still figuring things out. They loved playing savior. I let them. Until now. Now, the curtain was being pulled back. I'd kept the deception alive for so long that even I forgot what it felt like to tell the truth. But the Forbes article was dropping tomorrow. My phone buzzed again. Mia, OMGT, Tess, please tell me this billionaire thing is some kind of prank. I left her on read. Because Mia once made a TikTok about supporting your broke artist sibling that went viral. She tagged me, smiling, holding up a rent check she gifted me. That $2,000 check? I used it to tip the Uber driver. My intercom buzzed again. Miss Callahan, your father is downstairs. I checked the monitor. There he was, Edward Callahan, retired investment banker, 5-time family vacation planner, 6-time emotional manipulator. Let him up, I said, grabbing a bottle of scotch. The elevator doors opened. He stepped into the penthouse and stopped cold. His eyes scanned the space, the custom marble bar, the towering abstract sculptures, the wraparound balcony. Then his eyes landed on me. Tessa, this is where you live? For the past 5 years, I said, pouring us both a drink. But how? I handed him the glass. Remember when I asked you to invest $500,000 in my startup? You wanted to sell computer drawings. They were called NFTs. And if you'd invested, your shares would be worth $47 million today. He blinked, sat down. I didn't lie, I said quietly. You just never listened. We talked for almost 2 hours. Or mostly, he listened. I showed him revenue charts, press releases, acquisition records, Forbes screenshots. I watched his posture shrink with every document. Why didn't you say anything? I took a deep breath. Because no one ever asked, Dad. You all assumed I failed. And I was too busy succeeding to argue. He stood up slowly, walked to the massive windows. This place, it's extraordinary. I joined him. You haven't seen the island yet. The island where the family retreat will be. I bought it last year. He turned, stunned. You're hosting, transporting, feeding, accommodating, and presenting. Presenting, I grinned. Let's just say there's going to be a slideshow. As the sun dipped behind the city skyline, I poured another drink and stared at the blinking notification on my phone. Forbes. Article scheduled for publish. 6 OM tomorrow. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. 15 years of silence was about to end. And the next chapter? It was going to start with one hell of a family reunion. The Forbes article dropped at exactly 6 a.m. the next morning. I was already awake, sipping espresso in my robe, and watching the chaos unfold across 6 different screens. Digital ghost billionaire. How Tessa Callahan built a $4.9 billion empire in total secrecy. There it was, my face, splashed across the homepage of every major media outlet in the country. Me, standing in front of my signature collection, Mythos, Reborn, wrapped in silk and power. Beneath the headline, the article went deep. It didn't just name drop companies and net worth. It detailed the 15 years of quiet hustle, the insane returns I generated, the deals I brokered from behind a fake Gmail account, so no one would connect me to that Callahan girl who dropped out of finance. And now the world knew. My phone started blowing up before I even finished my coffee. The family group chat was a complete circus. Leo, $4.9 billion? Mia, wait. You're that Tessa Callahan? Mom, Tessa, please call me. I don't understand what's happening. Dad, we need to speak. Now. And from Aunt Leslie, who once suggested I retrain as a dental assistant because art isn't a real career. Aunt Leslie. Proud doesn't even begin to describe it. I muted the chat. I had more important things to do, like making sure the staff had finalized the landing arrangements for the private jet that would be picking up the entire Callahan clan in less than 24 hours. That evening, Rachel buzzed through again. Your brother Leo is back on the line. He sounds less angry today. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. Hey, I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. That was new. I was shocked yesterday. Still am, honestly. I don't know how I missed it. All of it. I leaned back on the leather chair, watching twilight bleed into the Chicago skyline. You didn't miss it, Leo. You just never looked, he sighed. You're not wrong. We thought you were struggling. No, you assumed. There's a difference. He was quiet for a moment. Dad's in full meltdown mode. I think he's trying to make a speech for the retreat. Mom keeps pacing around the kitchen like someone just died. A part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to scream. Instead, I said, good, let them sit with it. The next morning, the Callahan Reunion Express officially launched. 3 Rolls-Royces lined up neatly at the base of the family estate outside of Boston. The itinerary was sent out the night before, meticulously planned. Not that anyone had a say in it. Every member of the family, from my parents to our second cousins, was picked up and chauffeured to a private airfield. From there, they'd board my jet. Not just a jet, my jet. Midnight blue exterior, soft cream leather interiors, gold accents, custom logo embossed on the headrests, Mythos Global. When they walked onto that plane, they'd be stepping straight into the world I built, the one they never knew existed. Rachel messaged me a photo from the tarmac. My father, standing in front of the jet, looking like he'd swallowed a bee. My mom holding her phone like it was her only lifeline. Leo shielding his eyes from the sun. Mia? Already filming a This Is Unreal Instagram story. Of course she was. I met them on the island. Let me clarify. My island. It wasn't huge, just under 200 acres. But every inch was curated, polished, and branded to perfection. A state-of-the-art eco-resort, with villas carved into the cliffs, open-air galleries displaying my collections, and a helipad with my name painted across the landing zone in bold serif font, Callahan Creative Holdings. When the jet landed, the staff had already lined up for reception. Champagne trays, custom welcome packages, sun hats embroidered with their names. And when my family stepped out of that plane, they looked like they'd walked into a luxury fever dream. Welcome, I said, stepping forward. Hoped the flight was comfortable. They stared, like I'd grown a second head. You own this? My mother asked, blinking rapidly. All of it, I said casually. Bought it last year. Mia was the first to recover. Tessa, what the actual hell? I shrugged. Surprise? We walked them to their villas, each one named after one of my major launches. Dad and Mom got Genesis. Fitting. Leo was in Ether, Mia in Flux. Every suite had a printed portfolio waiting, color-coded binders with timelines, valuation charts, and one personalized document that broke down what my family had missed out on by dismissing my early pitches. Example, my father could have turned a $250,000 investment into $73 million. Instead, he called my pitch frivolous nonsense. At 7 p.m., we gathered for dinner. A massive glass, walled dining space overlooked the sea, framed by 2 flaming torches and 3 of my earliest animated digital sculptures projected on the water. My parents sat stiffly at the head of the table. I stood. I know this is a lot to take in, I began. You've spent the last decade thinking of me as the family-free spirit, the struggling artist, the one you needed to rescue. I let that sink in. But that was never the truth. I built this quietly, strategically, while you all underestimated me. Leo cleared his throat. We weren't trying to, you were, I said. And that's okay. I'm not here to punish anyone, but I am here to tell the truth. I turned and pressed a button on the table. Screens descended from the ceiling, the room dimmed, and the presentation began. The first slide, a blurry screenshot of my first ever NFT sale confirmation, $60,000. Next, the email from Dad rejecting my first proposal. Then came the growth curves, year-over-year profits, screenshots of magazine covers, TechCrunch headlines, photos with CEOs of billion-dollar blockchain firms. By the time we got to the 2021 acquisition spree, Mia looked like she was going to pass out. Leo just stared at the numbers, shaking his head. "This is insane," he muttered. "You were sitting on a fortune this whole time?" "Not sitting," I said. "Building. Every single day." When the lights came back up, the silence was deafening. My father finally spoke. "Tessa, why didn't you ever say anything?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Then I turned to face them. Because when I tried to, you all made it very clear who you thought I was. And it turns out that assumption gave me just enough space to build something you couldn't interfere with. My mom covered her mouth. Mia looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. After dinner, everyone went to their rooms. Except Leo. He hung back. "Tess," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't think I've ever felt this dumb in my life." I gave him a half smile. "It's not about feeling dumb. It's about realizing you never actually saw me." "None of you did," he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, that caught me off guard. He meant it." "Thank you," I said softly. Then I handed him a black folder. "This is what I wanted you to be a part of 3 years ago. It's not too late. But this time, if you want in, you come in as my partner, not as my brother doing me a favor." He opened the folder, eyes widening at the charts. "Jesus," he whispered. "This next thing could be bigger than everything else you've done combined." I smiled. "Oh, Leo," I said. "This is just the prequel." The morning after the dinner presentation, I walked out onto my villa's private balcony, coffee in hand, the ocean stretching out like a velvet blue infinity. For a minute it was silent. No texts, no emails, no news alerts, just seagulls and waves. But I knew the peace wouldn't last. The Callahan family had spent one dinner sitting politely through my billion-dollar bombshell. That didn't mean they'd accepted it. Sure enough, at 9:12 a.m. sharp, Rachel buzzed. "Your mother and father would like to meet. Privately. They're waiting in the East Garden." I almost laughed. Of course they were. That garden was my mother's happy place, manicured, symmetrical, and full of lavender. She always went there when she needed to control something. I found them sitting side by side on a marble bench, like they were posing for a holiday card. Both wore the same strained expressions I'd grown up with. Carefully composed, public ready. "Tessa," my mom said first, standing and smoothing her linen pants. "We need to talk." I stayed standing. "Go ahead." She hesitated, then came out with it. "We were hurt. Last night. Shocked. Embarrassed, frankly." I nodded slowly. I figured. Dad cleared his throat. "You blindsided us, Tess." I raised an eyebrow. "And you didn't blindside me?" 15 years of judgment, of being told my dreams were foolish. That wasn't blindsiding. That was concern, he snapped. "We were trying to guide you." "No," I said quietly. "You were trying to steer me away from anything that didn't fit your version of success." He looked like he wanted to argue but didn't. So I continued. "You called my work nonsense. Mom, you cried when I didn't apply for grad school. You two offered to pay my rent in front of extended family like I was some pitiful project. I didn't need help. I needed belief. And you hid all of this to what punish us?" she asked. I stared at her. "No, Mom. I hid it because it hurt too much to be dismissed every time I tried to share." They didn't respond, so I walked past them, through the lavender, out toward the cliffside trail. That garden didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like a stage, and I was done performing. Back at the main estate, the rest of the family was gathered for a brunch I hadn't even scheduled. Apparently Mia took the liberty, because of course she did. She was holding court at the terrace bar, waving her mimosa as she ranted to two cousins. "This whole secret billionaire thing, it's wild. Like, who even does that? If I had that kind of money, you'd know." "Trust." I stepped into view. Her face froze. I smiled. "You're welcome for the resort stay." She blinked. "I mean, thanks, obviously. It's beautiful. I just why keep it from us." The audacity. "You used to send me links to internships at design firms, Mia." "Yeah, because you said you were freelancing. Freelancing doesn't mean failing. You assumed I was broke because I didn't flaunt things. Because I let you cover dinner." Her cheeks flushed. "I was just trying to help. No, Mia. You were trying to look generous." That landed. She turned away, embarrassed. I didn't enjoy calling her out, but something in me had snapped since that family dinner. 15 years of being patronized, talked over, coddled, and pitied. And now, the same people who once called me idealistic were suddenly proud I'd made it? No. You don't get to skip the part where you believed I'd fail. That afternoon, I got a message from Leo, "Meet me by the pool in 20. It's important." When I showed up, he was sitting alone under the shade of a cabana, staring at a thick binder in his lap, the one I'd given him the night before. He looked up. "Test this platform, the one you're building next. You've created something I've never seen before. Not just art, infrastructure. Full-on tech revolution." I nodded. "That's the idea." He paused. "You're going to disrupt entire markets." "That's also the idea." Then he smiled, for real this time. "I want in. No hesitation, no ego, just. I want to be part of this." I blinked. "You serious?" He leaned forward. "I screwed up. I saw you as my little sister who doodled. I didn't realize you were building an empire while we were mocking your sketchbooks." I laughed under my breath. "I wasn't sketching. I was coding, innovating, planning. I know that now," he said. "And if you're willing, I want to be the one who doesn't miss it this time." It was the first olive branch I hadn't had to force. And honestly, it felt good. I nodded. "Then let's talk numbers. Tomorrow, after the tour." He smiled. "Deal." That night, as the stars blanketed the sky and the waves hissed against the rocks, I sat alone on the rooftop deck above the main estate, sipping from a wine glass and watching the reflections dance on the infinity pool below. Rachel joined me, silent at first. Then she said, "They're starting to shift." I looked at her. "Who?" "Your family." "Not all of them, but some. They're seeing it now, seeing you." I exhaled. "Took long enough. You think it'll stick?" I stared at the water for a long time. "I don't know, but for the first time, they're listening, and that's a start." Later that night, a soft knock came at my villa door. It was my mom. She stood there in silk pajamas, looking smaller than I remembered. "I can't sleep," she said. "Can I come in?" I nodded. We sat on the couch, side by side like two women who'd never really seen each other clearly until now. "Tessa." I read everything. The charts, the timelines, your story. I didn't say anything. "I thought I was protecting you," she whispered. "But I was just afraid. Afraid you'd fail. Afraid it'd reflect badly on us. So I pushed you towards safety." I looked at her. "Your version of safety wasn't mine, Mom. I never needed to be rescued. I needed to be trusted." She nodded. "I see that now." For a while, we just sat there. 2 generations, 2 women, a decade of silence stretching between us. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. It was my original pitch deck, the one I'd sent her and Dad 15 years ago. "I found this last week while cleaning the basement," she said. I didn't know what it was, but I kept it. My throat tightened. She placed it on the table like an offering. "I'm sorry I didn't believe in you sooner." I swallowed hard. "Thanks for telling me now," I said. And I meant it, because sometimes late is better than never. But the real test? That was still coming. Tomorrow was the official reunion banquet. The whole extended family, the speeches, the cameras, and my keynote. This time, I wasn't coming as the poor niece, or the weird artist cousin, or the daughter who wasted her degree. I was coming as the woman who built something bigger than all their expectations combined, and I wasn't holding anything back. The morning of the reunion banquet started calm, too calm. The sky was cloudless, the breeze light, and the Caribbean sun cast everything in a golden filter. On the surface, paradise. But beneath it, tension buzzed like static. This wasn't just another family dinner. This was the event. The one that brought in the full Callahan tribe, uncles from Denver, cousins from San Diego, that one great aunt who always asked if I was still doing that computer thing. And today, she was about to get her answer. By noon, the guests had started arriving by private catamaran because, of course, I arranged it that way. Every detail had been curated. The welcome music, the signature cocktails named after my NFT collections, even the floral arrangements matching the branding of my newest venture. Rachel met me in the villa foyer with a tablet in hand. Guest count is at 64. All RSVPs confirmed. The press team has the embargoed release. Security's tight. Everything's running smooth. I nodded. "And the keynote?" She smiled. Loaded, rehearsed, and ready, I exhaled long and slow. Today wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth and finally owning it on my terms. The main dining hall had been converted into a glass-ceilinged ballroom for the evening. Crystal fixtures, projection screens, live digital installations suspended midair. And at the center of it all, the Callahan crest reimagined in gold pixel art, pulsing gently like a living thing. Guests trickled in wearing forced smiles and expensive linen. My mother stood near the main entrance, playing hostess like she hadn't spent years pretending I didn't exist at galas. Leo helped direct guests to their tables, more confident now, more present. And me? I stayed back, watching from the side balcony, taking in the slow unraveling of the old family dynamics. Then I saw him, Declan, my father's former protege, practically my shadow in childhood, the golden boy of his generation, who once told me at a family wedding that women in tech were a phase. What was he doing here? Rachel appeared beside me, her face stiff. Declan just arrived. He came as a guest of your Uncle Michael. Of course he did. Some things never change. The dinner began with predictable awkwardness, overly loud laughs, clinking glasses, strained conversations about nothing. Then, halfway through the seafood course, my Uncle Michael tapped his spoon against his wine glass. Everyone turned. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, "to Tessa Callahan, our mystery mogul. We always knew she had something in her. Even as a kid, she was bright, curious, creative." I froze. Bright? Creative? He used to call me artsy-fartsy at every Thanksgiving. But before I could respond, Declan stood up. "And let's not forget the people who helped her along the way," he added with a slick smile. "The mentors, the advisors, the investors who showed early faith." "Oh no, he wasn't going to. People like your father," Declan continued, turning to the room, "who may not always say the words, but who planted the seeds for this kind of brilliance." I blinked. Was this seriously happening? Was he trying to redirect my moment? Back to my dad? I stood up, didn't raise my glass, didn't force a smile, just cleared my throat and let the silence stretch. "Thank you, Declan," I said, "for reminding me why I stopped attending family reunions in the first place." The room stilled. "You're right. A lot of people did shape who I became. Just not in the way you think." I walked to the center of the room. "Let me show you something." With a nod to Rachel, the lights dimmed. Screens lowered from the ceiling again, this time with curated footage I hadn't shown at the private family dinner. It started with grainy clips of my old apartment, voice messages from my dad calling me delusional, a TikTok Mia once posted laughing about buying me groceries, emails from 3 different family members declining to invest because digital art isn't real. Then, side-by-side projections of those same moments with timestamps of major milestones. Your idea isn't sustainable. 3 weeks later, Mythos sells out in 4 minutes. You need to be realistic. 6 months later, $1.2 M round raised from international backers. Come back home, we'll help you find something steady. 2 years later, acquisition of an entire blockchain platform. And finally, one text from Declan. No hard feelings. Maybe next time you'll ask for real advice. Underneath it, in bright white, 4 months later, I raised $42 M in venture capital. Without asking Declan, the screen went black. Silence again. Then applause. From the younger cousins first, then Leo, then my mom. My dad just stared, blinking. Declan was already halfway to the bar, face flushed. Afterward, guests mingled awkwardly. Some avoided eye contact. Others came to congratulate me with that thin, oily enthusiasm people use when they realize they bet on the wrong horse. But not Leo. He walked up, grinning, and whispered, "You dropped a mic so hard, they're going to feel that in 3 time zones." I laughed. And that's when I saw Mia again standing near the dessert table, scrolling through her phone, expression unreadable. I walked over. She looked up, startled. Hey, I didn't know you had that video from TikTok," she said softly. "That was years ago." "Yeah," I said, and it stuck. She looked down at her glass. "I was awful, wasn't I?" I didn't say anything. She nodded. "I was jealous. You were out there chasing something wild, and I was stuck trying to impress corporate people who didn't care about me. And when you didn't seem to be succeeding, I think part of me felt better. That was the most honest thing she'd said in a decade. I let the moment sit. I get it, I finally said, but I'm not the same Tessa anymore. And if you're going to be in my life, I need people who root for me, not people who only like me when I'm struggling. She nodded slowly. I'm sorry, she whispered. And this time, I believed her. As the banquet wrapped up, Rachel handed me a phone. It's your dad, she said. He stepped outside. I took the call. His voice was quiet. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said. There's a difference. He paused. I made a mistake. Yeah, you did. Another pause. But that platform you're building, the next one, will you show it to me? Just so I can understand it? That stopped me. I exhaled. I will, but not as a daughter seeking approval. As a founder, presenting her vision. There was something like a smile in his voice. Fair enough. That night, I stood out on the sand, the lights from the ballroom flickering in the distance, the air warm and still. I thought about all the years I'd spent playing small to make them comfortable, all the moments I'd downplayed my success so they wouldn't feel insecure, all the times I'd watched them celebrate each other while pretending I wasn't there. And finally, they saw me, really saw me, not as a child, not as a dreamer, but as a builder, a woman, a force. And yet, somehow, I still felt like I was just getting started. The morning after the banquet, the island felt different. Not just quieter, settled, like the air had finally stopped holding its breath. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up with a weight on my chest. No more pretending, no more hiding, no more playing the role of the underdog in a story I wrote myself out of a decade ago. But peace, like profit, doesn't last long without upkeep. And I had a company to grow, one that was about to change everything again. I was already halfway through a pitch deck review when Rachel knocked on the door of the villa. They're here, she said. The partners? She nodded. All 5. I stood, adjusted my shirt, and grabbed the small black folio that held the final plans for Vetra, the new platform I'd spent the last 2 years quietly developing. If Mythos had been my introduction, this was going to be my legacy. We met in the main conference suite built into the hillside. Sleek lines, smart glass, curved screens. Everything here was designed to reflect what we stood for, innovation wrapped in elegance. Leo arrived first, looking sharper than usual, navy suit, no tie, determined face. He shook my hand with purpose, not pretense. You ready? Always. Then came Sofia Navarro, my longtime advisor in crypto architecture, followed by Bryce Kim, who ran our Asia-Pacific licensing wing. They were joined by Jada Moreno, the marketing whisperer who could make any product a cult obsession, and Dr. Aitan Shah, our AI lead. Each of them had been looped in over the past year piece by piece, but today was the first time they'd see the full picture. As they settled in, I started the presentation. Vetra is more than a platform, I began, pacing slowly across the glass floor. It's a universe. I watched their eyes track me. Good. They were locked in. It's the convergence of 3 things: AI-generated immersive art, decentralized ownership, and real-time adaptive experiences. Think personalized galleries that learn your taste and change as you grow, music that evolves with your mood, NFT ecosystems that are more than collectibles. They're alive. Bryce raised an eyebrow. Adaptive ownership? I smiled. Let's say you buy a digital sculpture. It responds to your habits, your engagement, your feedback. It becomes more detailed, more valuable, the more you interact with it. The art evolves with its collector. Ownership becomes authorship. Sophia nodded. That's bold. It's overdue, I said. Collectors want connection. Artists want evolution. Vetra gives both. I flipped to the next slide. Financials. Projected valuation, $10.7 B by year 2. Fully bootstrapped? Jada asked. I shook my head. Not this time. I'm opening up a limited investor round, but only to people who believe in the vision. Not just the valuation. I looked straight at Leo. He got the message. After the meeting, we stayed back on the balcony. Leo leaned on the railing, watching the sea, visibly chewing on the math. This thing's massive, he said. You're not just changing art anymore. You're changing how people experience digital life. I nodded. That's the goal. And you want me in as what? Partner? Advisor? No, I said. I want you to head strategy and investor relations. But only if you're ready to see me as your CEO, not your sister." He looked at me, really looked. "I can do that," he said. "And I want in." I extended my hand. "Then welcome to Vetra." We shook. It felt real this time. Later that afternoon, I found my dad sitting alone in the sculpture garden near the West Bluff, staring at one of my earliest AI-generated pieces, a shape-shifting spiral that mimicked breath. He didn't notice me at first. Then he said, "It's peaceful here." I sat beside him. "That peace," he continued, "feels like, I don't know, like it's alive." "That's the point," I said. He nodded. "You built all this with the same brain I thought was being wasted." He looked at me, then, for once, really looked, no judgment, no control. Just reflection. I was wrong. That caught me off guard. "I was wrong," he repeated. "About your work, your worth, your vision." He held up a printed article, the one from Forbes, dog-eared and highlighted. "You didn't just prove us wrong, Tessa. You proved yourself right." I exhaled. "That means a lot." He stood slowly, then turned to face me. "Do I still get to be proud of you?" I gave a small smile. "You do. But now, you listen too." He laughed, shook his head, and pulled me in for a hug that felt decades overdue. By sunset, the island began to feel less like a battleground and more like a home. Mia joined me on the rooftop lounge with a bottle of rose, hair in a messy bun, makeup free for the first time all week. "You know," she said, pouring us both a glass, "I've been thinking, dangerous." She smirked. "Shut up." Then she got quiet. "I always thought I had to perform to be accepted in this family. You know, perfect job, perfect relationship, perfect hair. And you just left all that behind and became something real." I raised my glass. To being real, we clinked. That night, I sat in my studio on the island's north edge, surrounded by prototypes for the Vetra launch, motion-responsive canvases, tactile light sculptures, AI-coded stories that evolved with the reader. This was the part most people didn't see: the late nights, the weirdness, the obsession with what if. I opened my laptop, loaded the press release draft for Vetra's announcement, and started to rewrite the first paragraph. The future of digital experience isn't static. It breathes. It listens. It evolves with you. That felt right. I hit save, then leaned back, the hum of the ocean slipping through the open window. At 2:12 a.m., I got a text. "Unknown number, you've made quite a name for yourself. Let's talk." I frowned. A second message followed. "This is Malcolm Price. We met once briefly. My team's been watching your growth." I sat up. Malcolm Price was one of the most elusive tech investors on the planet, known for spotting unicorns before they left the stable. Another message popped up. "Vetra has teeth. I want in." I smiled. Not bad for a girl with a fake career. The next morning, before the others woke, I walked the shoreline, toes in the cool sand, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 15 years ago, I left a life designed by someone else. Now, I was building something no one else could imagine. And finally, the people who once doubted me weren't just watching, they were following. The last day on the island came fast. Too fast. It was one of those mornings where everything looked cinematic. Clouds stretched thin like silver threads. Sun low and lazy. Waves brushing the shoreline like they had nowhere else to be. The peace felt earned this time, but I knew it was just the quiet before the storm. Because tonight, Vetra would go live, and with it, the next chapter of my life. The team had been working through the night. Rachel was coordinating media pushes with 5 agencies across 3 continents. Jada had the marketing campaign ready to roll with a 90-second trailer that gave me goosebumps every time I watched it. Leo was running numbers, pacing nonstop on the back patio, muttering to himself about market caps and investor pitches. And me? I was strangely calm. The kind of calm you feel right before you jump out of a plane. At 10 a.m., I got a call from Malcolm Price. We'd had one Zoom meeting already. Short, intense, full of sharp questions and unspoken calculations. Now he wanted a final conversation before launch. I answered, walked out onto the beach, barefoot, toes in the sand as I listened. "Tessa," he said, "I won't waste your time. Vetra is the future. You've built something rare." "Thank you," I said. "I want in," he continued. "But not just as an investor. I want a stake, influence, A board seat. My team can scale you globally within 6 months. There it was, the offer, and the cost. I paused, because this was the moment every founder dreams about, but also dreads. I could feel the weight of it. Let him in, and Vetra would explode. Faster adoption, bigger reach, more money. But lose something. Autonomy, identity, the wildness that made Vetra what it was in the first place. I looked out at the ocean, the place where I'd first started sketching this vision 3 years ago, when everyone else thought digital art was dead and NFTs were a joke. And I realized something. I hadn't built Vetra to sell it. I built it to protect the kind of creativity the world kept trying to control. Malcolm the first said slowly, "I'm honored, truly. But I'm not giving up the seat at my own table." There was a beat of silence. "You sure about that?" he asked. Voice even. "Absolutely," I said. "You want to ride this wave? Come on board." "But I'm the one steering." Another pause. Then he laughed. "Well played, Callahan. I'll wire the soft commit. Keep the fire lit." We hung up, and I just stood there, alone on the beach, wind in my hair, heart pounding like a war drum. I had said no to the easy road. Again. By sunset, the final touches were in place. The launch party was set on the west side of the island, where the cliffs caught every last glint of dying sunlight. Glass platforms hung out over the water. Massive LED screens curved around the perimeter, each pulsing with glowing images from the beta test of Vetra. The guest list was tight. Investors, artists, a few media insiders, and, of course, the family. This time, no one tried to take the mic before me. I stepped on stage barefoot, not for drama, but because it felt right, real, like I was finally standing on my own ground. The crowd fell quiet. I looked out at them, then up at the stars just beginning to show. "This all started," I said, "because I wanted art to breathe." I let that land. For too long, we've been told creativity needs to fit inside boxes, platforms, timelines, markets. But what if it didn't? What if the experience of art could evolve, learn, grow with us? I pointed to the screen behind me. A sculpture twisted slowly, reacting to the movement of people in the crowd, mapping energy and motion like heat signatures. "This is Vetra," I said. "Not a product, a portal. A place where ownership and imagination meet, where your fingerprint leaves a mark, where no two experiences are the same." I paused, feeling the ocean breeze on my skin. I was underestimated for years, called foolish, naive, even selfish. But it was never about proving anyone wrong. I looked at my family, all seated near the front, silent now. It was about proving myself right. Applause, then cheers, then something I didn't expect, tears, from strangers, from my mother, from me. After the speech, the platform went live. The crowd watched as the Vetra interface lit up on the big screen, collectors logging in from all over the world, real-time bids, creations unfolding in adaptive bursts of light and code. Within the first hour, $18 million in activity. By midnight, $43 million. We didn't just launch a product, we launched a revolution. Back at the villa, I sat alone in the studio. Just me, a glass of bourbon, and the sound of soft waves outside. Leo walked in, uninvited, holding a tablet. "Final tallies in," he said. 48 countries. Over 6,000 registered users. Average engagement time, 3.6 hours. I blinked. "Already?" He grinned. "You did it." "No," I said. "We did." He nodded. Then added, "Dad's been quiet all night. Just sitting out by that sculpture again." I smiled. "Let him think. He's proud of you." "I know," I said. "But it matters more that I'm proud of me." The next morning, as the island slowly returned to silence and the guests departed one by one, I stood at the top of the helipad, watching the last private jet vanish into the sky. Mia hugged me tight before leaving. "I'm going to tell your story, you know. As a PR campaign?" "No," she said. "As a sister." That one got me. As the sun climbed higher, I took one final walk around the island, barefoot again, hair a mess, no cameras in sight. I passed the old sculpture garden, the cliffs, the gallery where my first piece still sat, untouched. And finally, the edge of the beach, where I first scribbled the word Vetra into the sand 3 years ago. thinking it sounded like something from the future. Now, it was the future. And I wasn't chasing anything anymore. I was leading it. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note. Chapter 1, Building in the Dark. Because this story, it wasn't over. It was just the beginning of something even bigger, something no one could ignore anymore. And this time, I wouldn't shrink for anyone's comfort. Story 2, What do you want to do? The sound of my father's voice shook the designer light fittings in our immaculate suburban kitchen. A frightening shade of purple had clouded his face, which was already red from his third scotch of the evening. My goal is to launch a software business. Trying to maintain a steady tone, I repeated. I've created a prototype already. This platform is beneficial to small enterprises. Not at all. His glass smashed to the floor. You may squander your life on a fantasy, since we didn't pay for your Stanford degree. You are going to work for the family company. The conversation is over. I looked to my mom for encouragement. She remained still at our marble island, keeping her customary cautious distance from confrontation. It gleamed on her wrist, the diamond tennis bracelet I'd given her for Christmas, purchased with my earnings from covert freelance coding assignments. I tried, Mom. How many small firms are having trouble implementing digital transformation, have you noticed? Danielle, my platform might be of great assistance. With a groan, she checked her manicure. It's your dad's right. Your fascination with technology, it's not realistic. You are needed by Norton Industries. The family has owned the business for 3 generations. In reality, they were referring to the failure of our family's industrial supply company, Norton Industries. They required my programming abilities to update their antiquated systems so they could compete in a market that was digitizing quickly. But my aspirations were loftier. I'm not requesting cash. I have savings, I answered. All I need is a little time. My dad snorted with laughter. Do you want some computer playtime while actual enterprises are on the line? Even if your sister has already become a partner in her legal practice. Yes, Sophia, a Harvard law student, is my ideal elder sister. Youngest partner in the history of her firm. Spouse of a surgeon. The benchmark by which all of my shortcomings were evaluated. I argued that this wasn't playing. Potential customers are already showing interest in me. The larger corporations are failing to provide small businesses with the inexpensive software solutions they need. Just inches from my head, my platform called the glass broke against the wall. With liquor running down the pricey wallpaper, my father shouted, "Enough! You may choose. Get out or join Norton Industries on Monday. Check out your longevity without our assistance." Despite flinching at the sound, my mother remained silent. She didn't. My father shook with anger as I glanced at them both. My mother avoided looking at me and took the decision that would alter the course of my life. I decide what I'm going to leave behind. Surprisingly calm, I got up. I wish you success in updating Norton Industries without my help. You're not thankful. I was already on my way upstairs when my father began to approach me. This was a moment I had anticipated. Essentials were already in my backpack. Laptop, transportable, hard drive, 2 outfit changes. I have a safety deposit box where I kept my vital paperwork. My parents couldn't access the account where the majority of my funds are kept. You've got an hour. Up the stairs, my father yelled, "Then leave this house, please." I retrieved my favorite sweatshirt, my emergency pack, and a final glance at my childhood bedroom. My medals from the coding competition were still on the wall. Rewards from science fairs. Stanford had taken notice of the framed article about the software I had created in high school. My best buddy Marcus texted me, and my phone buzzed. The escape operation is still ongoing. Plan B was started, and I typed it back. Months earlier, when I initially made the decision to follow my company goals, Marcus and I had played out this scenario. I could stay in his little flat above his family's eatery until I was able to support myself. My mother eventually spoke as I was about to leave. "Daniel, please use common sense. Your dad just cares about what's best for you." "No," I interrupted her. "He is interested in Norton Industries' best interests." There is a distinction. I left without turning around. It seemed unreal the first night in my automobile. 2 streets from my parents' house. I parked on a peaceful street. I had set up their fast Wi-Fi network and isolated myself far enough that they couldn't see me, so I was close enough to keep a solid connection. As I continued to code the familiar rhythm of keystrokes, my laptop shone in the darkness, erasing the voice in my brain that warned me that I was committing a grave error. "Are you certain about this?" When Marcus brought me food, he inquired. His mom's amazing pad thai. I still have my couch accessible. I showed him my workplace and shook my head. Laptop, backup, mobile hotspot, online. A power bank for unexpected situations. For now, I must remain mobile. I can't risk them discovering me and attempting to eject me. He showed up on my screen. "What are you constructing exactly?" I displayed the UI of my prototype. I refer to it as Smart Start. For small enterprises, it's a one-stop digital platform. Everything they need to succeed in today's market point of sale, inventory control, customer relations, and internet presence, but made simpler and more reasonably priced, like what your dad's business requires. Though similar enterprise solutions are too expensive for smaller organizations. I reflected on all the neighborhood stores I had witnessed struggle and fail due to their inability to adapt to the digital revolution. Big tech is neglecting a large market. Marcus gave a slow nod. A cash register from the 1990s and paper order tickets were still in use at his family's eatery. "When will it be ready?" Version that is basic. 2 months. The most of the essential features are operational. All that has to be done is add additional functionality and polish the UI. I kept the fact that I was covertly recording all of Norton Industry Systems' flaws from him. Each weakness, each inefficiency, every lost chance to innovate digitally. I was creating it because I knew they would need it eventually, not because I was spiteful. They simply weren't aware of it yet. Life fell into an odd pattern. I would work from different coffee shops during the day, purchasing the bare minimum required to validate their use of their Wi-Fi and space. I would park close to my parents' house at night and utilize their fast internet to upload code and carry out intricate testing. I found out which parking lots were safe to sleep in and which to avoid, survived off protein bars, coffee, and leftovers from the Marcus family, and took a shower at a cheap gym. Without interruptions, it was productive even if it wasn't comfortable. I could devote all of my attention to creating Clever Start if my mother didn't passively disappoint me or my father didn't constantly criticize me. My sister Sophia attempted to step in one weekend. At my regular coffee shop, she found me and said, "This is ridiculous, Daniel. What are you trying to show by living in your car? That you are as obstinate as your father." I continued to code without looking up. I'm constructing something significant. A certain future with the family company is being thrown away. The family business is fading. I was direct. Their systems are outdated, their procedures are ineffective, and their rivals are consuming them, but Dad is too proud to acknowledge this. Then assist in fixing it. At last, I looked her in the eyes. "What I'm doing is just that. Not exactly as they would like it." She put a big package on my table before departing in disgust. There was a message and $5,000 in cash inside. "Don't be a fool. Return home." I upgraded my coding tools and purchased a better laptop using the money. In the second month, the breakthrough occurred. A number of small firms have contacted me about beta testing. Smart Start, a neighborhood bookshop, a family-run hardware store, and a developing food truck company are all having difficulties with the same issues that my platform was intended to address. The owner of the bookshop responded, "This is exactly what we need. QuickBooks is too complex, and the custom solutions are too costly," after I had shown the inventory management system. What would the price of this be? Her eyes brightened as I gave her a pricing quotation, purposefully less than the going rate, intended to increase word of mouth. By the third month, I had constant income from paying clients, albeit in tiny amounts, enough to cover the cost of a small studio flat. However, in order to avoid my parents' notice, I kept it off a lease. Then came the call that made all the difference. "Is Daniel Morton here?" The voice sounded forceful and professional. "Indeed. From Tech Fund Ventures, this is Charles Widener. We have heard intriguing rumors regarding your Smart Start platform." My heart stopped beating. One of the nation's most prominent early-stage investors was Tech Fund Ventures. The small company sector is in dire need of your solution, according to one of our portfolio firms. Are you open to talking about possible investment? Thinking of all the nights I spent coding in my van, I tightened my hold on my phone. Every meal was skipped in order to purchase server time. To follow this desire, all uncertainties and anxieties were set aside. Yes, I would definitely be interested, I said. I was unaware at the time that this discussion would start a series of events that would not only confirm my vision, but also force me to confront my family's financial failures. Unbelievably, the Tech Fund Ventures office was located on the top floor of a shiny tower in the heart of the city, exactly the type of establishment my father would have approved of. I tried not to seem like someone who had been living in his van 2 months prior, rearranged my one nice outfit, and purchased used items for investor meetings. I was surprised to see how young Charles Widener was, with the easy assurance of someone who had made his wealth in the first e-com boom, maybe in his early 40s. Pointing to the meeting rooms, he remarked, "Walk me through it again," large screen on which my Smart Start demonstration was running. I launched the user interface, which had grown as recognizable as my own image. The complexity of the digital world is overwhelming small enterprises. They require solutions for customer relationship management, inventory control, and e-commerce. However, current options are either too costly, too complex, or too restrictive. I gave an example of how a small business owner may spend less than an hour setting up their complete online presence. Tracking of goods at the point of sale, correspondence with customers, and even simple analytics. Everything is integrated and easy enough for anyone to utilize. This also scales, Charles inquired. Totally. The architecture is modular and cloud-based. As companies expand and interact with other platforms, we can add functionality, but the fundamentals remain the same. Slowly, he nodded. Andrew. 28 users as of right now. Word-of-mouth referrals from paying clients. 0 rate of turnover. 4 hours a day on average are spent with users. It's impressive. He displayed a second screen. The incorporation documentation for my business. 6 months ago, Innovative Solutions LLC was registered. Indeed. So far, entirely self-funded. He looked closely at me. Son, you're Jonathan Norton. My heart skipped a beat. My father, you know. Before your father bought out the minority shareholders, Norton Industries was one of my first investments. His face became contemplative. They're struggling to adjust to online marketplaces. I understand. I maintained a neutral expression. I'm not sure. Norton Industries has nothing to do with me. Fascinating. A new document appeared on his tablet screen when he tapped it. We want to give you seed money. A 20% stake costs $2 million. I made an effort to hide my trembling hands. $2 million. More money than I could have ever dreamed of. Charles went on. There's one condition. We would like you to broaden your focus. While small businesses are fine, mid-sized businesses, like Norton Industries, require these solutions. And there it was. The trap I dreaded and had been anticipating. Do you want me to go after my family's company? He gave a small smile. I would like you to focus on a market niche that is in dire need of modernization. It is incidental that your father's business may profit. As I reflected on the small businesses already prospering with Smart Start, I recalled all the nights I'd spent parked outside my parents' house, using their Wi-Fi to build something they dismissed about my mother's silence and my father's anger. I'll have to have complete authority over the company's course. Don't interfere with the core mission, I added, naturally. A folder he slid across the table. Ask your attorneys to look it over. Don't wait too long, Daniel, though. This market will eventually close. 3 days later, after going over every detail with my sister Sophia, who was still a better lawyer than she realized, I signed the contract. You're actually doing this, she remarked, returning the documents that had been annotated. In direct opposition to Dad's company, I said, I'm creating something that could save his company. If he is open to seeing it. She gave a head shake. He won't, you know that. Not from you. Of course, she was correct. But I had a plan for that, too. The following 6 months were a flurry of ramping up. I hired actual office space, a converted warehouse that would have given my mother a heart attack. Hired developers, designers, sales personnel. Marcus came on as head of customer success. His knowledge of small company owners is really helpful. Smart Start expanded more quickly than Charles had anticipated. Business groups learned about the platform that truly fulfilled its promises. From dozens to hundreds to thousands, Our user base grew rapidly. The piece that made all the difference then appeared. Goliath versus David in digital form. How corporate software is being disrupted by Smart Start. Finally, the tech press was out of business. The article commended our ability to assist small firms compete with larger organizations, our creativity, and our emphasis on user experience. It also indicated that I was Jonathan Morton's estranged son, almost as an afterthought. Minutes after the piece went up, my phone rang. Sophia. Dad. Enraged. She didn't introduce herself. An urgent board meeting is being called by him. Why? Norton Industries is not a rival of Smart Start. No, but 3 of their largest clients just said that they will be moving to your platform. Stunned, I reclined. We've given tiny companies a lot of attention. I was unaware that mid-sized businesses were beginning to use Smart Start. There's more. Sophia's most recent quarterly figures were maintained. They're awful, Daniel. Very terrible. The board is considering evicting Dad if he doesn't update their procedures. I retrieved the public financial data for Norton Industries. The figures were worse than I had anticipated. In just half a year, their stock had fallen 40%. The rate of customer attrition was increasing. They were practically on the verge of going bankrupt due to their antiquated software systems. They require assistance. Silently, I said. You are needed by them. She made the correction. Dad, though, will never acknowledge it. I considered all the characteristics we included in Smart Start, as well as Charles Wagner's remarks on focusing on mid-sized businesses. Norton Industries and similar businesses might be saved by that, perhaps. Slowly, I said. They don't have to be aware. It's me. I called an emergency team meeting that evening. We're introducing business solutions. I pulled up the prototype and made the announcement. In the meantime, I had been creating a new division aimed at larger companies that was based on the Smart Start architecture, but had extra capabilities for intricate operations. Marcus scowled. I believed that we would continue to concentrate on small business. We are, but a whole group of mid-sized businesses are being smashed by the resources of large corporations and the agility of tiny businesses. They require what we have constructed. Although I didn't disclose it, I had spent months researching Norton Industries' shortcomings and creating answers for problems they weren't even aware they had yet. Every element in enterprise solutions had been created especially to address their difficulties. For weeks, the team worked nonstop. We used a subsidiary business that was difficult to link to me to start enterprise solutions under a new name. The marketing campaign specifically targeted Norton Industries and other well-established corporations who were having difficulty embracing digital change. We waited after that. It took very little time. Within days after our debut, Norton Industries' new Chief Technology Officer, who had been appointed in a desperate attempt to recover from their most recent system failure, contacted us. The location of the meeting was their headquarters. I watched over a secure video link while my father and his board were shown corporate solutions by our sales team, who were specifically selected to be unrelated to me. I witnessed his realization that this was just what they required. He resisted acknowledging it, and the board members asked pointed questions on cost and implementation. It would be a substantial investment. Our sales representative gave an explanation. However, additional possibilities must be considered for the possible return. Jonathan was interrupted by my father. A senior member of the board leaned forward. In just 2 months, we've watched 12 presentations. The only approach that truly takes into account their track record and particular demands is this one. Outstanding outcomes with comparable businesses. Another board member added their voice. Last quarter, my cousin's manufacturing company made the changeover to their system, saw improvements right away. I saw the expression on my father's face as he knew he was losing the battle. Change was what the board desired. Their clients insisted on it. Their greatest chance of surviving was with enterprise solutions. All right, he snarled. Launch the procurement procedure. I shut down the video stream. It felt oddly empty. I had succeeded. Just what Norton Industries required. Confirmed that my eyesight was correct. Why, therefore, didn't it seem like a win? When Sophia contacted again 3 days later, the response was given. Without introducing herself, she said, "Dad's drinking a lot. Mom is discussing separation. Enterprise Solutions made my stomach turn. Since he is aware of his failure, he had to go pleading with strangers for assistance since the business was collapsing. She hesitated. He continues stating that he ought to have paid attention to you. I gazed at the beautiful skyline beyond my office window, considering every decision that has brought us to this point. The tenacity of my father, my pride. We created walls of silence between us. What if I suggested, carefully, that there was a way to salvage his dignity in the company? How? I need your assistance, but I have an idea. The appointed time for the Norton Industries board meeting was 9 in the morning, Thursday. I used their Wi-Fi by sitting in my car outside their offices, where I had previously parked. My father, who appeared older than I recalled, came last as I watched familiar figures stream into the building. His typically impeccable suit was a little rumpled, and he walked with less assurance than I had gotten accustomed to seeing him walk. Is everything prepared? I called my phone and inquired. Ready? Sophia attested. The members of the board are prepared. Mom was in place, and Charles Wagner had just arrived. However, she is still unsure of this. I changed my tie designer, but it's still not the one my dad would pick. Today must be the day. By the end of the week, the board must approve the Enterprise Solutions deal. Good luck, Sophia said. Avoid taking too much pleasure in this. Despite my nervousness, I grinned. She was too familiar with me. When I stepped in, the security guy looked twice. I had been escorted out the last time I was here, following another argument about joining the family business. I was back on my terms now. As I walked in, the boardroom became quiet. My dad's expression quickly changed from astonished to irate to perplexed. Charles Wagner, who was seated close to the head of the table, simply nodded as though he had anticipated my arrival. "Why are you here?" my dad insisted. "I'm here to talk about the deal with Enterprise Solutions." I put my laptop on the table and spoke calmly. "The board meeting is closed. Safety?" Charles actually cut in with ease. "Mr. Morton, the Enterprise Solutions principal investor, is here at my request. His opinion, in my opinion, is very important to this conversation." My dad's face turned white. "What are you?" When I plugged my laptop into the screen, a recognizable interface appeared, but no Enterprise Solutions. Rather, the first present to them, the original Smart Start dashboard, which includes my very first sketches and notes. I began constructing this on the day you expelled me. I described how to use your Wi-Fi. Actually, the board members shifted uneasily, because I was living in my car at the time. At last, my mother, who was seated quietly in her typical corner seat, turned to face me. Smart Start expanded more quickly than anyone anticipated. I went on. Because it provided a straightforward and cost-effective solution to actual problems, small businesses adored it. However, I was aware that bigger businesses required comparable fixes. The Enterprise Solutions interface is what I went to. The system's inventory management, customer tracking, and integration features were all created with Morton Industries' needs in mind. Each feature was created especially to meet those challenges. Have you been watching us? The anger in my father's voice trembled. "No, I've been working to keep your business afloat. You wanted me to work for the same firm, but only under your conditions." Charles Wagner cleared his throat. "Mr. Morton's proposal has been examined by the board. Software platforms are only one aspect of Enterprise Solutions. It may present a chance for a merger." My dad's head jerked up. "Combine." I launched fresh slides, the comprehensive plan for a merger. I had been prepared for weeks. I clarified that Smart Start Technology will purchase a majority stake in Morton Industries. However, the heritage firm continues to use the naughty name, improved by contemporary technologies. Additionally, the incumbent CEO becomes chairman emeritus, concentrating on strategic alliances instead of daily operations. There was no sound in the room. "Do you wish to purchase my business?" my dad muttered. "I'd want to keep it. I changed it to something that embraces the future while paying tribute to its past. However, it must occur immediately, before you are entirely overlooked by the market." It was my mother who talked first. He was heard by Jonathan. Startled, he turned to face her. She had never raised her voice in 30 years of board meetings. "I've seen Daniel's creation," she went on. "What he gave up to construct it. Winning or losing is not the point of this. It has to do with family. Family? He laughed loudly. He left the family company. No, silently, I said. I came up with another technique to back it up. Morton Industries was considered in the creation of every feature and innovation in corporate solutions. Because, in spite of everything, I never lost faith in this company's potential. I approached his chair and opened another document on my tablet. In my card that first night after being expelled was my original business proposal. Project Phoenix, Modernizing Norton Industries Through Independent Innovation was the headline. You. He gazed at the paper, a dawn of recognition. All along, this was your plan. A backup plan? Plan A was actually trying to persuade you to modernize from inside, but you weren't prepared to hear it. Next, Charles Widener got to his feet. By the end of the day, the board must vote on this merger proposal. I proposed that we take a short break to consider this information. I was left alone with my father as everyone else filed out. He seemed bewildered as he sat there looking over my business proposal. How come you didn't tell me? At last, he inquired. Would you have paid attention, listened intently? Not only heard the information you were looking for. He remained silent for a while. You constructed everything? Use our Wi-Fi. I couldn't contain my laughter. Are you concentrating on that? He touched his gray hair and said, No, I'm attempting to comprehend how, in less than 2 years, my son went from living in his car to expressing interest in purchasing my business. Similar to how you started your business, you saw an opportunity that others had overlooked and worked harder than anybody had imagined. By having faith in a greater power than myself. Slowly he nodded. This would have delighted your granddad. He used to say that the finest business lessons are learned by disproving the doubters. Actually, you taught me that. Who said Morton Industries would fail? All those tales of how you founded it and how you disproved everyone. I took a seat next to him. I just followed my method rather than yours. The merger was approved by the board in a unanimous vote. My dad. I voted yes after the longest pause of my life. The changeover wasn't seamless. There is never any change, particularly in family-run enterprises. However, Norton Industries started to change gradually. My grandfather's fundamental company was preserved, but we updated the brand and added technology to help it succeed in the digital era. We also retained the name. Norton's stability and Smart Starts' innovation came together to produce something that neither business could have done on its own. I sat at my father's former office a year later. He eventually agreed to take on the chairman emeritus position, so we now have our office. We were looking at quarterly figures that were higher than expected. You were correct, he remarked abruptly. What did I look up? Almost anything. The necessity to adjust, the shifting market, and the technology. He looked directly into my eyes. I was too smug to notice, too afraid of losing command. He then pointed to the iPad, which displayed our most recent findings. Now, I'm proud of what we're doing together and what you've built. Marcus buzzed my phone with a message about a possible new purchase target, another family firm in trouble that required precisely what we produced. I pulled up the proposal and remarked, talking about building, how do you feel about our enterprise division growing? He grinned the genuine smile I recall from my early years, before anxiety and tension had made him brittle. Give me additional details. Later that evening, I passed our former residence. There was still a robust Wi-Fi signal. They were unaware that I had changed their system last month. I reflected on that first night in my vehicle, coding under the light of my laptop, driven by resentment and resolve, and with aspirations to prove everyone wrong. I had discovered, however, that success was not about proving others incorrect. It was about establishing your own credibility and creating something so indisputable that even the most ardent doubters had to admit its worth. Once more, my phone buzzed. My mother reminded me of the family supper. These were commonplace occurrences. But now the discourse had changed from judgment to sincere curiosity, from criticism to cooperation. On the way, I couldn't help but utilize the Wi-Fi to send this SMS back then. She answered right away. Very amusing. Bring the new acquisition proposal, your father says. It's true that he's grinning about it. Thinking about how far we've gone from rejection to reunion made me grin as well, from rivalry to cooperation, from surreptitiously utilizing their Wi-Fi to assisting them in embracing the digital future, sometimes proving someone incorrect isn't the greatest form of retaliation. It's giving them a whole new perspective on what's right.